Okay, so this is the PowerPoint that my mom sent to you guys, sent to me, and then I'm going to record kind of what she would say over it. So she wanted to start you guys off with just a little laugh. So she found this cartoon from, it's today's random medical news from the New England Journal of Panic-Inducing Gobbledygook. And she was saying, like, if you don't understand your science well and you don't have epidemiologists to tell you what's real and what's not real, but like what's actually an epidemic and what's just random chance, right? We did the coin flipping and we saw that people did flip coins to different amounts, that you can end up with something like this. So this would be like, according to a report released today, coffee can cause depression in twins, and you're just sort of spinning this around. And then if your politicians don't understand science, as we talked about on Friday, you can end up going, okay, so if you're a twin, you shouldn't be drinking coffee, but it's okay, right? Which is obviously not true at all. All right, so this, can you solve the mystery of what's causing this epidemic, comes from a workshop she used to do with students probably like 10 years ago. So first, to set the stage, and you don't need to take notes on this, I'll tell you like kind of when to take notes, but all of this background is in the worksheet that I attached this week in the folder where you found this video, so you probably already have the worksheet. So in the early 1900s, doctors in the rural southeastern United States reported the occurrence of a new disease. As with most new diseases, like COVID, they didn't know originally what caused the disease, but they had several predictions. And this is the early 1900s, right? So we also don't have the flow of information that we have in 2020. Some doctors thought that the disease was infectious in nature, so something like COVID. Others thought it was caused by something people ate, so like a foodborne illness. An epidemiologist conducted a survey of people in 24 mill towns, so towns that had mills. I don't know that we have any mill towns anymore in this country, where the disease had been reported. For 1 year, the epidemiologist and her assistants visited each house every 2 weeks to look for cases, right? They actually have to go around again. There's no internet. They can't email people and find out what's going on. So now I'm going to give you the data that they collected, and this is where I would, either in a journal or on the worksheet I provided, just write almost like a claim for each graph, just so that you can then look at it all together and start to think about what it is that is causing this. So this was cases by month of diagnosis, so you can see some trends there. And my recommendation would be to pause the video, write down kind of what you're seeing, and then go on to the next one. I'm not going to explain them right now because that's part of what I want you guys to do. So then this is new cases per 1,000 people by gender. So little gender bias in the colors here. Males are blue, females are pink. I would have chosen like yellow and orange, but that's me. But yeah, so this is per 1,000 people. So when you see like this peak here for males, that's maybe like 122 people per every 1,000 people in the population. Okay, so you can definitely see where things are really similar, but then you can also see where things are really different by gender, which is kind of interesting. This graph is then marital status, so orange is married and blue is single, and it's broken down by marital status and then by age group, but then also rates per 1,000 people. And so obviously there's nothing that's less than 16 because nobody was married in these towns less than 16, okay? And I don't know if there's no blue here because nobody was single over 50. I cannot imagine that's the case, but just there were no cases. So that's marital status. Occupation, remember they were looking at these mill towns. So this is mill workers are in orange versus other workers were in blue. Again with rates per 1,000 people. And then this was ages 20 to 54. And then the reason, just really quickly, why we always do rates per 1,000 people is because that's sort of a normalizing factor. I mean, you could do, I want to say right now, I saw some data on the New York Times that was rates per 100,000 people, right? But you want to do that just to kind of normalize things, right? If you're looking at rates of COVID in Montana as compared to Washington State, really you'd expect more in Washington State because Washington State has so many more people than Montana. But if you look at it per rates per 1,000 or 100,000, then you can sort of start to compare and say, oh, but we're actually seeing more cases per 100,000 people in Montana. I don't believe that's true. Than in Washington. Although there are states where you would find like Washington has more, but per 100,000 people, Washington actually has less. So then you say, oh, the rates are actually better in Washington because they have more people, but the illness density, think of it as density, right? Go back to your understanding of density, is less. Household contacts, right? So we talked about reproductive rate within households, one of the videos from the Johns Hopkins course. So on the left, we have the overall rate, and then on the right, we have rate for people in households with one case already. Then we have income. So 1 down here is the lowest income group, whatever they defined that to be, right? This was the early 1900s. So looking at those numbers, if you looked at them today, you would be like, wow, everybody's low income. But you have to remember with inflation, this was when you would buy milk for 10 cents or whatever. And then 7 was the highest income group. So definitely some very clear trends in this one. And then one of the things they looked at was the sanitary rating of each village. Okay, so this was before modern sanitation, right? Again, back in the 1900s. So it was a rating is a composite measure that includes cleanliness, sewage disposal, and water quality. So where people are getting their water from, what the quality of that water is, how they're disposing of their waste, both like physical waste, like trash, but also like sewage waste, like dirty water, things like that, toilet water, that kind of thing. So 10 was a low sanitary rating and 80 was a high sanitary rating, meaning 80 is like, hey, everything's looking nice and clean. 10 was there's some sanitary issues in this village. And then they also noticed some differences in diet. So they found higher rates of the disease in people who ate less meat, less milk, and ate more cornmeal. And just kind of a reminder that diet may affect your immune system as well. So depending on what you're eating, that could affect how easily, like it could be foodborne, but that could also have something to do with how your body is able to fight disease. So those are the trends that they found. So the question is, what is your team? So your team is you guys think is causing this disease. Is it an infection or something that people are eating? So, or something else entirely, okay? So go, once you've kind of processed all of this, go to the discussion. One of the things that I think is going to be a little hard for this discussion is it's going to divide you up into, I think it's going to divide you up based on how I understand Schoology, into the class periods you're assigned to. So like first period, we'll be talking to other people from first period, but I'll kind of go through every day or so and just summarize in each discussion group what the other class periods have said. It's not going to be perfect. I also would encourage you, some of you are friends with each other outside of school, I would encourage you to like chat by FaceTime and see what you guys can come up with. But then put your ideas and put your questions. If you're like, wow, this data made me question this, and can anybody clarify what that means? Go ahead and put that in there too so that we get a discussion going before Friday. And then I will look at it Friday before our meeting with my mom so that I can kind of summarize what people were saying overall. Okay, so please let the discussion begin. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys on Friday.